I thought I'd do today's video on the concept of teaching music classically, although not necessarily classical music. So roughly speaking, what that means is that what we do is we understand the context of the music, we understand the notes that are going in, all the things you would normally expect from classical tuition, albeit not necessarily classical music. If you don't want to play Mozart, we don't need to play Mozart. So I've got my electric guitar out today, and I'm going to be looking through two different concepts, blues and flamenco. So here's a little demonstration of what you'll be able to do and understand the context of by the end of the lesson. That's a demonstration of a blues-based piece of music, and contrary to that, we've got the flamenco style. Okay, so as I said, the lesson really is on the difference between studying music classically and studying classical music. If you look at Africa as a continent and split it roughly speaking into north and south, you get the understanding of where these musics come from. The music of Central to Southern Africa moves out in the slave trade in a westward direction towards the US, and takes with it three different ideas. A simple form of music, a music which has a text which is based on slavery, and a style of improvisation which is progressive. It's a simple form of music, i.e. what we're doing is we're following something which is called a tetrachord. I'll do a separate lesson on how this was discovered and Pythagoras and mathematics and the understanding of all of that, which is fascinating and really it's interesting and useful within your understanding of music of all sorts, whether it's classical music or non-classical music. However, basically speaking, I'm starting on the A string here, moving up by 4, hence the term tetrachord, tetra meaning 4. As in tetrahedron or Tetra Pak, you know, those milk packs that are square-edged, called Tetra Paks. So I've got A here, got my A string here, moving up by 4, as in A, B, C, D, 1, 2, 3, 4, moves me up to the D. And if I move in the opposite direction, A, back to G, back to F, back to E, so that's 4 in that direction, so that's A forward by 4 takes you up to D, and A back by 4 takes you to E. If you're asking yourself at this point, why is 4 important? As I said, I'll do something on Pythagoras later, so just leave it for that for the moment. So if we're using the chords of A, D, A, and E, then it sounds it sounds perfect. And what I mean by perfect is physically and mathematically perfect. It's the way that music works, and therefore it underpins all styles of music, classical, blues in this context, and many others. So a little demonstration of what that sounds like with an A chord, using a form which goes up to a D chord, back to an A chord, and an E chord. Watching particularly for my A string being open here. This is my A string on the second fret, second string down here. I'm playing a power chord here. Now I've got the D string open. Back to the A. So, as I said, the blues style, historically speaking, has a simple form. Because it has a simple form, hence the reason it's so popular. So I'm doing condensed chord progression based on what those who are much more used to playing the blues will know as a 1-4-5. It's a condensed version of it. I'm just preempting complaints in the comments below when this is posted to YouTube. However, I'm doing a condensed version of it for the purposes of this video. So, 3 separate things go into the blues. Simple form, as I've explained. Lyrics which are aligned with slavery. Now, you know, I'm a white middle-class male. I have no right to play the blues, and you know, most of the people watching this video have had no link really with the slave trade. However, one of the best feelings in the world is the school bell going off at the beginning of the summer holidays. We've all felt enslaved in some way in life. I mean, we're not talking real slavery here, but one of the main reasons that blues is so popular is that, emotionally speaking, the text speaks of slavery. That will reflect something I'm going to say to do with flamenco later. So you'll see here that I'm using chords which use basically my second, the second fret it's quite useful on the guitar in this key. I've got my E note here and I've got my A note across here. The scale structure which is used within blues is called the pentatonic scale. Penta meaning 5 and tonic meaning note. So we're going to be using a 5-note scale, employing these notes from the chord, plus a couple of others. So that's A on the open string, followed by a C. You'll notice that we're studying music classically, although not necessarily classical music. So with Lessons with Me, you get to know the actual pitches and the real notes. We don't use tablature. If you're looking for that, look somewhere else. If you're looking for a teacher that doesn't do that, that's me. A, C, D, E, G, A. A to C, D to E, and then G to A. As I said, there is a simple form behind this. The text speaks of slavery, which, although we are not actually slaves in 99% of cases, we've all felt a little bit, a slave to the man in some way. And there's also a form of improvisation which is limitless, using the pentatonic scale in this particular case. Throwing all of that together, you get something without the text, something which sounds like this. For the purposes of the video and for teaching purposes, I limit what it is that I'm capable of clambering around the neck and doing things in different voicings. That's fine. As I said, from the center of Africa down to the south of Africa, this is where the slave trade pulls out to the US. But from the center of Africa to the north of Africa, particularly into Egypt, i.e. the word Egypt. It is said by some, but not by all, that that leads to the word gypsy. You've got music which moves from Africa into the EU rather than from Africa to the US. So there's an interesting link, and a phrase that I use most often is that flamenco is the blues of Europe. Often guitar teachers will teach the blues, saying that is the centre of all guitaring, and it's the centre of some guitaring, and it is influential. I mean, Led Zeppelin's first 2 albums are essentially blues with an electric guitar. Although, that said, their most famous tune is flamenco-based, and particularly something along the lines of Babe, I'm Gonna Leave You. Uses something called the Phrygian cadence. In fact, many, many songs that you'll know use the Phrygian cadence. Anything from Hit the Road Jack. Feeling Good by Nina Simone. Losing My Favorite Game by the Cardigans, and you know, many, many more. Smooth Criminal is in there as well. So get to know your flamenco, and you'll get to know many more styles of music. There's a very simple form to it, like the blues. The simple form employs the Phrygian mode. I'll do a separate lesson on what the modes are, where they come from, where they get their names, all of that sort of thing. This lesson is on teaching music classically, although not necessarily classical music. Studying music classically, not studying classical music necessarily. We can study classical music if you want, but not necessarily. And it's demonstrating a little bit of what it is to have a knowledgeable teacher, and a teacher who understands music from a classical standpoint and then applies that to whatever style of music you like, and indeed what style of music I like. I do listen to classical music, I do write classical music, but it's not all that I listen to. There's many, many different styles out there. So here's the flamenco style. Simple form, using the Phrygian cadence. The Italian word cade means to fall, so you'll hear this fall going down to the A. Actually, I'll do this on the on the E string so you can visually see it. A, G, F, E. Lyrically speaking, the word flamenco means other. So you may not be in a dispossessed group. So flamenco is where society, those who are accepted in society, would say, those others, those over there, those who are not us, they are flamenco. And you may not be a gypsy from a dispossessed community, or a dispossessed people. However, if you've ever walked down the school halls and felt a certain clique saying you're not one of us, or if you've been at the water cooler and not allowed into a conversation, then you are flamenco. And flamenco is the blues of Europe. So the text, if only it was in English, most of it's in Spanish, and I don't speak Spanish. It's the lyrical text speaks of otherness, and that's something that we can all get on board with. The simple form is the Phrygian cadence, and because the text speaks of otherness, it's very emotional. There's 2 interesting things that happen here. The sense of time can stretch. You can get suddenly quicker or suddenly stretch the sense of time to double it, just depending on what's being sung about, and certainly what the dancer is emoting at that time. You'll notice that the guitarist has a real sense of stretching time, and that being okay. From a Western art music classical background, once you're in one key, that's you in one key, broadly speaking. If you're playing an A major, then don't play an A minor suddenly. That kind of doesn't make any sense. In flamenco, that's okay, because it's emotional music about dispossessed people. Then I'm going to teach you the notes for the mode, But you'll notice that sometimes I'll slip out of those notes of the mode, add other things in. That's okay, that's just part of the deal. Rather than using the pentatonic scale, which the blues started with, what we're going to use is we're going to use the Phrygian, but not the Phrygian cadence this time, the Phrygian mode. This is essentially a minor scale, which would be A, we're going to do this in the key of A, B, C, D, E, F, G. It's essentially that, but this time it has a flattened second. So instead of going A, B, C, it's A, B flat, C. So, as I said, the styles blues and flamenco have a simple form. They have a text which fits with what it is that we are emotionally involved with, whether that's slavery in terms of the blues, or whether that is the dispossessed people in terms of flamenco. It has lyrics that we can get on board with, and the improvisation is limitless. So have a listen to this. I'm going to be using the Phrygian cadence coupled with the Phrygian mode to give you the beginnings of flamenco. I'll do later lessons on this, but essentially what this leads to is a much more triadic form of music than the blues does. So if you've ever played an A minor chord, as I alluded to with the Led Zeppelin reference, Stairway to Heaven and Babe I'm Gonna Leave You are much more flamenco than they are blues. Particularly I've got my distortion on at the moment, so I wouldn't play Stairway to Heaven, but you know, the A minor is prevalent in there, and that comes out of this Phrygian mode, this flamenco background. What I wanted to do in today's video was demonstrate what I mean when I say teaching music classically, not necessarily classical music. We've touched on the blues and flamenco. What we've done is we've looked at them in terms of notes, we've looked at them in terms of historical context and understanding the music. That essentially is what we mean when we say studying music classically, and that's what you'll get from me as a teacher. We didn't play any Mozart, didn't play any Bach. Don't think that in the fact that I teach you classical music, or music classically, sorry, found my own trap there. Don't think that because I teach music classically that necessarily means classical music. Click through to the the contact form on my website to book lessons, and I'll see you on the other side. Bye for now.